The courtroom held its breath as the door creaked open and a slender woman with tightly braided hair walked down the aisle. Dressed in a modest navy suit, she looked nothing like the music industry insiders people had come to expect. But the buzz shifted the moment she stated her name, Monica Reyes, a former PR assistant at Blue Empire Entertainment, a subsidiary once owned by Diddy's label. No one had expected her, not the press, not the prosecution, and certainly not Diddy. Her voice wavered slightly as she took the stand, but her eyes remained fixed ahead. "I was instructed to send invites using fake names," she said, her tone sharpening. Diddy never used his own. It was always aliases, sometimes 4 or 5 for a single event. The lists looked harmless, until you realized who they targeted. The gallery stirred. Journalists exchanged glances, pens scratching paper faster than ever. On the defense bench, Diddy remained still, his jaw tight, his hands clasped. Years of silence, speculation, and shadowed rumors now had a face, a name. Before we dive deeper into this bombshell testimony, make sure to subscribe for more gripping real-life stories and breaking developments as they unfold. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Reyes, can you clarify what you mean by fake names?" Monica reached into her handbag and retrieved a weathered folder. Inside, copies of internal emails, handwritten notes, and printed guest lists. These names were codes. For example, J. Marcus was a stand-in. The invite would be sent under that name, but the recipient was a young artist, usually someone new to the scene, without management, vulnerable. She flipped to one email, dated 2 years prior. This one was for an event at a private mansion in Calabasas. "You'll see the alias, and here," she pointed, the true recipient's real name written in pencil by an assistant. The crossover was intentional. If anything leaked, it would lead nowhere. Gasps echoed. The prosecutor walked to the bench, examining the documents with widening eyes. "And who gave you these instructions?" the prosecutor asked. Her answer came without hesitation. Diddy himself. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. The judge banged the gavel twice. "Order!" The defense attorney stood quickly, objecting to the statement as speculative. But Monica remained calm. "I sat in meetings. I was there when he approved the list." He called it a filter system. "Only the chosen ones," he'd say. Despite the tension, her words were surgical. No exaggeration, just clarity. Monica continued. "There was always a separation. The official invite, the hidden list, and the people who were never meant to be seen, only to be used." The defense scrambled, requesting the documents for review, but the damage had been done. The first crack in the wall of silence had formed, and it came with paperwork. The judge ordered a short recess. Monica was escorted out of the courtroom, her hands shaking slightly now, but her face steady. The press rushed to file early headlines, and online forums exploded with speculation. Outside the courthouse, the public was divided. Some still defended the mogul, claiming vendettas. Others demanded justice. But inside, the air had changed. The story was no longer hearsay. It was now a matter of record. Diddy stared ahead, expression unreadable. But in the tightness of his grip and the twitch in his brow, the message was clear. He hadn't expected her. And Monica. She had just started. Monica Reyes had once dreamed of changing the world through music. Growing up in Atlanta, the sound of late-night radio interviews and chart-topping hits had filled her room with possibility. When she landed her first job at Blue Empire Entertainment, she thought she'd made it. The headquarters gleamed with power, the artists buzzed with energy, and the offices echoed with ambition. She wore her ID badge like armor. But it didn't take long for the shine to wear off. "At first I thought it was just industry stuff," Monica recalled under oath. "Late parties, tight circles, whispered names. It all felt exclusive." Her tone darkened. Then it started to feel secretive, manipulative. She described parties advertised as artist networking events, held at luxury homes in the Hollywood Hills, complete with non-disclosure agreements and security teams that checked cell phones at the door. They were never on the books, not really. We'd logged them as private development sessions or executive summits, but they weren't that. One night stood out. It was summer, humid and electric. Monica had been sent as part of the PR support team, under strict instructions to stay invisible but useful. The party was already swarming with models, dancers, producers, and a few known rappers, but something about the energy felt different, quieter, more calculated. I was standing by the catering table when a man with an earpiece tapped 3 guests on the shoulder. 2 were young artists I recognized, barely legal. The third was a DJ from Miami, new in town, nervous as hell. They were led down a corridor into what staff called the Black Room. I'd never seen it before, Monica said, her voice lowering. It had no windows, and the entrance was tucked behind a decorative curtain. I only caught a glimpse, but I remember the red lighting. It was eerie. She never saw what happened inside, but what followed was worse. 2 hours later, the DJ came out looking pale. He left without saying goodbye. The next day, his manager called the office. He never wanted to be contacted again. That was the last time I heard his name in any of our databases. The courtroom listened in stunned silence. Monica wiped her palms on her skirt. I tried to convince myself it was just paranoia, that it was some elite VIP section, maybe a surprise performance, but then I noticed a pattern. Everyone invited into that room had 2 things in common. They were new and they were alone. Her voice cracked slightly. And one of them was 17. I didn't know until weeks later. I wanted to vomit. She paused, catching her breath. After that, I stopped attending events. I started documenting things. I knew if I spoke up, it would be over, for me at least. People disappear for less in this industry. Monica admitted she considered leaving multiple times, but fear always held her back. It wasn't just about Diddy. It was the entire ecosystem. Agents, scouts, managers, everyone looking the other way. As she stepped down from the witness stand for the day, the jury remained fixed on her, some skeptical, others disturbed, but no one unmoved. Outside the courthouse, the story had already gone viral. Black Room trended within the hour. Inside, the silence had become more than suspense. It was a slow realization. Something deeper, darker was coming to light, and for Monica, the decision to speak was no longer a matter of choice. It had become a matter of conscience. The next morning, tension wrapped the courtroom like smoke. Word had spread. Monica's testimony wasn't just emotional, it had substance. She had mentioned documents, hinted at names, and now the prosecution was ready to show the world what she had held on to all those years. A large screen flickered to life, revealing a spreadsheet pulled from Monica's personal drive. She had managed to keep it hidden, encrypting it under a false file name buried inside years of media files. The sheet was meticulous: date columns, event titles, invite aliases, cross-referenced with real names. Each row painted a pattern, quiet but deliberate. "These entries," said Ada Helen Morris, "are from internal event records compiled during Monica Reyes's tenure at Blue Empire. We've authenticated the timestamps and metadata. These were not created after the fact." At the top of the document, one alias appeared repeatedly: Lucian C. According to Monica, that was one of Diddy's primary ghost names, used to correspond with scouts and send out VIP invitations. A forensic analyst took the stand next, walking the jury through how metadata had confirmed the files originated from devices linked to Monica's work account and how the data matched certain event bookings tied to private mansion rentals and off-the-grid after-parties. "This isn't just a list," the analyst said. "It's a mirror." And when we compared these names with attendance logs, we saw something even more disturbing. Several of the real individuals invited under these aliases were minors at the time of the events. Whispers spread. In the back of the room, journalists typed furiously, capturing every syllable. The defense attorney, Marcus Fielding, stood to object. "Your Honor, we contest the authenticity of these documents. Miss Reyes has a clear motive for revenge. She was terminated. She holds a grudge." But Monica hadn't been terminated. She had resigned. And records showed she had left quietly, citing personal concerns, with no demands, no accusations, just silence. Fielding continued, This data could have been doctored, created after the scandal broke. It's convenient, isn't it? She stays silent for years and then shows up with a fully formed spreadsheet. The judge allowed the objection to stand, but permitted the prosecution to continue. They had more. From a laptop, Ada Morris played an audio clip. It was short, under 30 seconds, and distorted to hide the speaker's identity. But the voice, muffled and weary, was clear enough to understand. "Yeah, I was on security. I saw those lists. We weren't supposed to ask who was coming, just who they really were. If you asked too many questions, you didn't come back the next day." No name, no face, but it cracked something wide open. The public outside had already begun to rally. Protesters held signs with sharp slogans, and survivors from unrelated incidents began stepping forward, offering statements, speaking out on social media. Inside, Monica watched it all unfold, seated behind the prosecution bench. Her face was still, but her fingers tapped nervously against her thigh. Each moment of validation brought more attention and more danger. She had warned the prosecutors. The names in that list were just the beginning, but she didn't know how far the defense would go to bury it. As recess was called, Diddy's legal team rushed from the courtroom without speaking to the press. Cameras caught the glint of panic in their pace. The spreadsheet was real, the aliases were traceable. And now the court had a voice, a pattern, and evidence that tied them all together. But the question that lingered was chilling in its simplicity. How many more lists were out there? By the time court reconvened, the gallery was packed. Reporters jostled for space, and a line stretched out the courthouse doors. Something had shifted, the invincible image of Sean Diddy. Combs had taken a visible blow, and now the court prepared for what many thought would never happen. The judge, firm and unwavering, called the next witness, the defendant himself. Diddy rose slowly, buttoning his dark blazer. His expression remained unreadable, but his shoulders bore a tension no stylist could hide. He walked to the stand with practiced poise, his chin slightly raised, as though reminding the world who he had been before all this. Sworn in, he adjusted the microphone. The courtroom fell silent. Ada Morris stood, calm and collected. "Mr. Combs, were you aware of the use of pseudonyms when sending out invitations to your private events?" Diddy leaned forward. "Artists use aliases all the time. That's nothing new, it's branding. And were these aliases Lucian C., J. Victor, Nathan K., used by you directly?" "I don't handle invites. That's staff. I'm not personally involved in those details." Morris paced slowly. "So you deny approving these lists?" "I oversee my brand, not the RSVP desk," he replied, smiling faintly. It wasn't arrogance, it was defense. But then Morris paused and walked back to the evidence table. "We've heard from Monica Reyes, we've heard from a data analyst, we've heard an anonymous security recording. Now we'd like to present one more item." She held up a printed email. This was retrieved from Ms. Reyes's archive, dated October 12, 2019. Subject line, "New York Mixer, final list." The room went still. Morris handed the printout to the judge, then to the jury. It was sent from an internal Blue Empire server. The message includes a list of 5 names under pseudonyms, followed by RSVP confirmations. And at the bottom, your personal sign-off. "Let's make it legendary, SC." Diddy's face did not move, but his eyes flickered, just once. Morris turned back to him. "Is this your sign-off?" He didn't answer. "Is this your email?" Silence again. "Mr. Combs." He shifted. "I don't recall that specific email. And yet it came from your domain with your signature, referencing an event at your home. I have assistants, teams. Anyone could have—" "Forgery," Morris interjected. "Are you suggesting this email was forged?" He hesitated, but then said, "I'm saying I don't recall." A murmur rose from the gallery. The judge banged the gavel, but something had already changed. The subtle shift in tone, the tension in Diddy's voice, it echoed across every listener. The man who once dominated the charts, the clubs, the awards, was now cornered not by rumors, but by his own digital fingerprints. Monica, seated quietly, didn't flinch. She had waited for this moment. not for revenge, but for truth. As the court recessed for lunch, journalists rushed to report the moment. Diddy fails to deny authorship of alias email blared across every news ticker. Legal experts weighed in. Some said it was enough to warrant further charges. Others claimed the burden of proof remained thin. But the public saw what mattered: a crack. Outside, industry silence began to break. A music executive posted cryptically, "Too many people knew, too many stayed quiet, that time is over." Inside, Diddy remained on the stand, stone-faced. The email wasn't just a document, it was a weapon. And the empire he built, hit by hit, deal by deal, now stood on crumbling ground.